I'm on a quest to find out which class is best in Baldur's Gate 3. To do this, I am playing through the game with a full party of each class, no multiclassing, to see how they all stack up against each other. Normally when you have different classes in your party, they lean on each other to take damage, control the battlefield, or do mass damage. But when there's only one class, the party must adapt to make up for what the other classes provide, forcing them to lean into their true strengths to make it through the game without cheesing it. For each playthrough, I take on as many battles as possible to thoroughly test them out, and to have a bit of fun. So far, we've already been through rogues and clerics, proving that rogues require the biggest shift in thinking, starting pretty hard to use until Act 3 before becoming very strong. Clerics, however, pretty much dominate the game from the get-go and are pretty well rounded. So now we're taking on the full party of wizards. And we've just finished Act 1. Despite me calling them the weakest party, the wizards only slightly struggled at the start of Act 1, proving themselves to be quite capable by the time we defeated the Grim. It is now time to step into Act 2, and our wizards are charged. Can they prove that they are not the weakest party? Grab your snacks, a comfortable blanket, and hit the like button. Let's dive into Act 2. It's actually pretty messed up. Before we venture into the Shadow Coast lands, there was a couple of loose ends I needed to tie up. While doing a bit of looting and exploring, I stumbled across this secret cache which was guarded by mimics. This was actually new to me, so I was a bit caught off guard. However, the mimics stood no chance. Then found these robes, which were suggested to me by 58 Falcon in the comment section, and these will be perfect for Eldras's build. After this, we went back to the Myconid's colony and delivered Nir's head to them. They all rejoiced and started dancing around happily. Then back at the Grimforge, we killed the last remaining Dwager before proceeding through the door into the Shadow Coast lands. Before we made it too far, we ran into Elminster,
Who there, wanderer?
who forced us to listen to his long-winded story while he ate our food.
Oh, nigh on 13 centuries old and he still thinks with his stomach. We'd best follow and see if he's more disposed to speak plainly once it's stopped its grumbling.
There was actually a reason he was here. He told us that Gale had been tasked by Mistra to use the orb that was in his chest to destroy the Absolute. Elminster also cast a spell on Gale which prevented Gale from needing to consume any more magic items. Not that we have a shortage by any means, but it's helpful. With that taken care of, we pressed onwards into the shadows. Thankfully, we had the Spring of Light and had Eldras cast light on himself, allowing us to navigate the shadows quite easily. As we ventured further, we came across a group of harpers wandering through the darkness. They were suspicious of us and held us at arrow point at first. However, this only was wasting time, and one of their party was dragged into the shadows in one of the slowest action sequences ever. Unfortunately, Jonas couldn't be saved, and he emerged now touched by the shadows, trying to coax everyone into joining him. We assisted the remaining harpers and successfully fended off the shadows, not allowing any of them to die. They were very glad of our assistance and invited us to encampment, the Last Light Inn. We followed behind them, and on our way we interacted with this dead crow, spawning an entire army of crows around us. These crows threatened to massacre us with their sheer numbers, so I took a drastic measure of having Shadowheart cast Ice Storm on all of us to take them out. This did do some unnecessary damage to us, but we were kind of a bit desperate. Finally made it to the Last Light Inn, where we were met by a very angry half-elf named Jaheira. She was very cautious of us, and her suspicions were proven when she tested us with a tadpole in a bottle. Thankfully though, Mole put in a good word for us, which saved our lives. We also revealed the secrets of the artifact, which helped prove that we were safe from the Absolutist pools and that we might be able to help them. Jaheira was happy with all this and let us in, wanting to speak more inside.
You may just be the godsend we've been praying for.
We long rested, and that night Mizora came to us.
Oh, I love this time of year. The dickheads start popping up wherever you look.
She asked us to save an asset captured by the Absolute, who was being held in Moonrise Towers. We agreed only on the condition that Mizora would release Will from their pact. However, we will have to wait and see if this actually happens. On the next day, we spoke to Damon, who repaired Karlak's heart with some infernal iron, giving her longer to live. Next, we spoke to Jaheira. We drank her truth potion and revealed what we knew about the parasite. She revealed to us her struggles and asked us to help the Harpers defeat the Absolute. Of course we agreed, and she recommended that we speak to Isabel upstairs. But before that, we spoke to Barkus. We offered to help him save Warburn, so he didn't have to go into the towers himself. To assist us though, he started working on something called the Brilliant Retort, which apparently will help us against the cultist. Fantastic. Next we saw Raphael playing chess with Mole. We assisted her in defeating him, but overheard that they had some kind of an agreement. After she won, she left, but Raphael had something to talk to Astarion about. Before we knew it, Astarion was stripped off his clothes. Typical Astarion. This revealed the rune pattern scars on his back. Raphael said he would investigate these runes and come back to us with another offer.
Although I
I should probably get dressed first.
Next, we spoke to Elfira. Well, I was wrong about us seeing her again in this playthrough. She informed us that the tieflings were ambushed along the way through the Shadow-cursed lands. Some of them had made it to the Last Light Inn, most were killed, and a few were captured, including Zevlor. We spoke to Mol, who didn't tell us about the deal she made with Raphael, and then we also got further instructions from Councillor Floric. While we're in the room with Floric, we spoke to this Flaming Fist who was with an unconscious man. He was talking in his sleep about someone named Thaniel, and also had a note on him about investigating the Shadow Curse, something we'll have to talk to Halsin about later. With that all squared away, we went upstairs to speak with Isabel. She gave us a Selûne blessing which would help protect us from the Shadow Curse. But before we could do anything further, a man flew in through the window. This man was Marcus, and he was once a Flaming Fist soldier. He was now infected by the Absolute and intended to kidnap Isabel and take her to... When he realized that we were infected, he tried to ask us to help, but this wasn't happening, and we drew our weapons to protect Isabel. Marcus made a gut-curdling growl, and flying horrors flew in from all directions. One even took Mole. Battle started, and my goal was to protect Isabel at all costs, because if she falls, the whole Last Light Inn will be screwed. I had Gale cast Create Water on Marcus, setting us up to do some massive damage with our following turns. A couple of winged horrors flew up and hit Isabel for half her health. This was okay, provided that we can take him out quickly. However, Isabel had different plans. She tried running away from Marcus, allowing him to hit her with a reaction attack, bringing her down to a quarter health. She then proceeded to run past one of the other winged horrors, allowing them a reaction attack as well, in which it landed a critical hit, incapacitating her. We had lost the battle before we could have any impact, and with it, we lost the Last Light Inn. The protective barrier Isabel had set up, keeping the Last Light Inn safe, fell with her capture, leaving all but those already blessed to die to the Shadow Curse. Marcus, Damon, Floric, all dead, and we were left with a horde of Shadow Curse harpers and Flaming Fists to fight off. Thankfully though, Jaheira was still alive to help us.
To battle!
This was not good. There were very little friendlies in this fight, and a lot of enemies, meaning AoE and control spells were key to victory. Jaheira must have known this, and she opened with Ice Storm, doing some good initial damage to the group of them. Eldrass and Gale both Misty Steps to the rooftop to get a good advantage point, and rained down fireballs into two groups, taking out 4 of the enemies. Shadowheart cast Ice Storm on another 4, taking down 2, while creating a large area of icy terrain on a key pathway to us, while Astarion used Raise Dead to summon 2 skeleton archers into battle. Thankfully, none of the enemies had made it to us yet, and on Jaheira's second turn she cast Ice Storm again, increasing the size of the icy terrain and doing good damage. Eldrass Misty stepped back down to get in range to cast a highly effective firewall over the mouth of the bridge where a large group of enemies were, killing one of them in the process. Dale did some damage to a closer enemy with Scorching Ray. Some other enemies tried to make it closer to us, but they all slipped on the ice. Shadowherd killed the Shadow-cursed Damon and other enemies who had come in close with Thunderwave. The skeletons took care of the vines that spawned in, while Astarion killed another 4 with a massive lightning blast. More enemies slipped on the ice, delaying them to get to us. Most of these enemies were dead now, and more vines started to appear. However, we easily took them out with our spells. This was an absolutely horrible outcome, and many quest lines have been stopped here because of it. I can't say I've ever had a battle be so far out of my control before, but this is the way of Baldur's Gate. No save scumming here. We deal with the consequences. Before we go any further, guys, I hope you've been enjoying it so far, and if you have been, give the video a thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to see more videos like this and more Baldur's Gate content by me, subscribe to the channel. Anyway, let's keep going. After this bloody battle, we long rested. We spoke to Halsin and told him about Art Culloch, who was the unconscious man, now dead, who was talking about Thaniel. Halsin was very excited by this and asked us to meet him by the Last Light Inn to help him with a ritual to save Thaniel and potentially relieve the Shadow Curse. Before we went to Halsin, we made use of some of the dead tiefling bodies in the Shadow Curse and used Raise Dead on them. And this was the start of our small army, including 3 skeletons and 1 Azer. Now with our small army of 8, we went to Halsin. He said he was going to create a portal to the Shadow Realm and save Thaniel, and we were required to defend the portal from the Shadow Curse. As soon as Halsin entered it, shadows and cursed ones started to swarm. I started with the skeleton archers trying to do some damage to the shadows, but they weren't very effective. However, Gale's first fireball did some good damage to the 3 groups of shadows towards the south. I then had him Misty Step to a ledge to get a better vantage. The Azer remaining skeleton attempted to do some additional damage to the Wraith and the Shadow, but couldn't really make much of an impact. A couple of the Shadow-cursed harpers came from the bushes and started taking shots at the portal. We couldn't let that happen, so they were top priority. I had Shadowheart cast Scorching Ray on one of them, only bringing it to half health, while Astarion used Lightning Blast on the Shadow and Wraith standing in front of him, defeating the Shadow. More Shadow-cursed enemies dashed into range, allowing Eldrass to cast Flame Wall across the beach, killing all but one of the archers. He then Misty stepped up on the ledge next to Gale. Suddenly, a murder of crows appeared, and even more Shadow Coast enemies ran in. With help of the skeleton archer, Gale threw a massive fireball, finishing off the weak archer along with another. And then a shadow stepped up to Eldrass and hit him, breaking his concentration and removing the firewall, just before another shadow destroyed one of the skeletons. It was now Shadowheart's turn, and there were many more Shadow Coast enemies coming. So she cast Ice Storm on the group with the bows, damaging them and hopefully slowing them down. Next, Astarion landed a massive lightning blast, hitting the Wraith and a hidden shadow, along with a small group of Shadow Coast enemies hidden in the bushes. But we still had to do something about the crows and vines that spawned in the middle. Nothing that Eldrass and a fireball can't fix. Eldrass threw a fireball into the group, taking them all out in one hit. As planned, the two archers slipped on the ice, preventing them from getting any closer. And the other Shadow Coast enemies were not only weak, but had grouped themselves close together. A rookie error. Gale threw a fireball into the group, taking them all out. While Shadowheart used Scorching Ray and Astarion used Magic Missile to take out the Shadow Coast Hound that had made it to the portal. Eldrass then used another fireball on yet another large group of Shadow Coast Githyanki warriors that had run in. It wasn't enough to kill them, but thankfully none of them had ranged attacks. They all dashed in to get close to the portal, yet again grouping themselves perfectly. The ice had melted though, and the two archers were now in range to attack the portal on their next attack. Gale drank a potion of speed, and used Create Water on the closest group before casting Lightning Blast and killing 4, while Shadowheart cast Fireball on the rear group, killing the 2 archers and damaging others. Astarion then was able to cast Lightning Blast and kill the Wraith along with 2 of the Shadow Coast Gith. And then to finish off the turn, Eldrass landed another massive Fireball, finishing off the another 4 and leveling up the party. With 1 turning remaining to destroy the portal, the Shadow Curse was desperate, and one of them got really close to the portal, requiring Shadowheart to use Thunder Wave and knock it into the abyss. There were still a couple of shadows desperately trying to destroy the portal, but just before they had the chance, Halsin had returned, and we had succeeded. Halsin said that there was still something wrong with Thaniel, so we took him back to the camp to investigate. We were now level 8, and it was time to get access to some new spells and feats. For Eldrass, his new spells were Ice Storm and Longstrider, and for his feat he got Dual Wielder, allowing him to wield dual staffs. Shadowheart got Counterspell and Banishment, and her feat she got Warcaster. For Astarion he got Longstrider and Banishment, and for his feat I gave him Dual Wielding, allowing him to use his sword and his staff in typical Gandalf fashion. And lastly, for Gale, he got Glyph of Warding and Longstrider. For his feat he got Dual Wielding as well. With that taken care of, we short rested and then made our way through the shadow to He Who Was. He offered us power if we helped him with his ritual. Of course we agreed, because what wizard would want more power, and then we continued on. We took out one of the bramble ambushes and then made our way to another where we had a really tough battle, only just managing to finish off the last one by the skin of our teeth. Everyone had used all of their magic spells, and we were almost completely wiped out. Everyone but Eldrass was dead, and we had no spell slots left. It was the only because of Eldrass's acid breath that we were finally able to defeat the brambles. Close call. After reviving the party, we long rested and continued forth. I went back to the dead tieflings and had Astarion and Shadowheart summon another 3 undead archers. Gale summoned his Azer and a crow, and I had Eldrass summon the 2 mud methods, leaving us with an army of 11. We proceeded onwards and Eldrass's eye revealed the measles locations, allowing us to surprise them with a fireball. They stood no chance against us. I preempted the absolute caravan that would be coming through, guided by the spider guy, and I attempted to climb the roof of the building for an advantage. I had Eldrass then go back down to start the dialogue. However, this proved my plan was pointless as our whole party, all 12 of us, now including Scratch, were teleported to the building. Perfect for large AoE spells. Eldrass tried to trick them into giving us their lantern, but it didn't work. So the battle started. They did manage to do some good damage to us and take out a few of our summons, but we did manage to bomb the floor with them pretty easily. We may not have been able to target the spider guy, but he still takes AoE damage. With them defeated, we released the pixie from the lantern and got her protection, allowing us to venture deeper into the Shadow Curse.
Finally! Been trapped in that coffin with no one but a mad rider and my own farts for company.
We went up to the hill and beat Oliver at hide and seek. We then fought and burned another bramble ambush. And with that done, it was time to go across the river and make our way to Moonrise Towers. I wanted to get in there pretending to be an absolutist so I could purchase some more food and supply packs along with any other items that could work with our build, which proved useful as I got another couple of items that suited Eldrass's lightning and thunder build, including this wizard hat which looks absolutely ridiculous on Dragonborns. We then went to the audience chamber where Ketheric was hearing the report from some goblins about the Selûne temple. They had failed him and they were going to be punished. We vouched for them, but this wasn't enough for Ketheric. He commanded that they be killed. This enraged one of them, and it managed to throw a poleaxe like Superman, impaling Ketheric. He wasn't dead. He simply stood up and ripped it out from his chest. He gave the goblin another chance. She lodged the axe into his neck, which still didn't kill him. This goblin's luck had run out. and Ketheric smashed her. Ketheric left, and Zrel ordered us to deal with the remaining goblins, which we did allow to leave. Afterwards, we reported to Zrel, who wasn't pleased about us releasing the goblins, and we managed to steer her away from revealing us as fake absolutists. Convinced by our fake faith to the absolute, she ordered us to help Balthazar retrieve a relic from the Thorm family mausoleum, and she also said we could get a moon lantern from Balthazar's chambers, warning us though not to pry. However, this was precisely what we were going to do. We looted what we could from his room, and after setting off all the traps, requiring us to use knock to unlock the door and allow us to escape poison gas twice, we managed to reveal Balthazar's secret lab. We found this spell circle where Balthazar was making the lanterns. Gale knew something about it and said he could either destroy the circle or alter it to make a powerful weapon from a moon lantern. Gale wasn't sure that if it would please Mystra, so Eldrass decided he would try to attempt it, which apparently really pissed Mystra off as my game crashed. After reloading, we forego Mystra and hoped she wouldn't see as Gale turned the shadows into a weapon for us to wield. This resulted in a great lantern which allowed us to summon a shadow. This was perfect for Astarion's build, adding more to his army of undead. Since we were here, we explored Ketheric's room, finding some more loot and making quick work of the Mimic. This was pretty much everything I needed to do here, so it was now time to go and face the Thorm siblings. Starting with Thizabald. For each of these, I decided I would try and do each without combat. So Eldrass sat down at Thizabald's bar and started drinking. He was doing well and he was keeping down his drinks until he failed to tell a good story that would satisfy Thizabald. So we had a fight on our hands. I approached the start of the fight defensively, having Eldrass cast Fire Shield and Shadowheart cast Stone Skin to beef up our defenses. I had an Azer and 2 Mud Methods summoned, which I had attacked the zombies that were in the bar. Then prepared Thizabald by casting Create Water on him. Astarion cast Singing Sword Shriek to provide us with access to more damage, and on the second round, Eldrass opened up with Lightning Blast, doing some amazing opening damage to Thizabald and one of his zombies. Thizabald then used Electric Burp to kill both the Mud Methods and half Astarion and Shadowheart's health, before summoning an illusion which continued to damage us, while Astarion took more damage from the zombie, leaving him with less than a quarter health. Thizabald was still wet, so Eldrass... It's so hard to use that line. Seriously? It just sounds like it could easily turn into smut. Anyway, let's not go too far down that path. So Eldrass's next Lightning Blast did a massive 56 damage. Shadowheart though was stunned by the illusion, which skipped her turn, allowing the illusion to knock Astarion down. I had Gale throw a potion at Astarion, but for some reason it didn't work. It hit the ground next to his body. Eldrass used yet another lightning bolt, bringing the Thizabald down to just over half health. However, it was too late for Astarion. Thizabald burped again, finishing him off. Shadowheart was finally able to make a move and threw a fireball at Thizabald, bringing him down to half HP. This was quickly followed up by a fireball from Gale and Eldrass, finally killing another zombie and weakening Thizabald some more. Thizabald then moved to Eldrass to attack him, and took some massive damage from the fire shield Eldrass had, bringing him down to a quarter health. Thizabald was too close to Eldrass, so he used Thunder Wave, which knocked him down with a reverberation stack. Finally, after this many turns, the Azer had finally managed to defeat the zombie. Good work, Azer. It then burned the acid hallucination, removing it from the fight. Thizabald then hit Gale for 16 damage, making him quite weak. Gale tried to use Thunder Wave on Thizabald to knock him away, only to fail. Eldrass then landed a massive Scorching Ray, doing some great stacked damage. However, this didn't help Gale, and Thizabald knocked him down with his burp. To avenge Gale, Eldrass and Shadowheart pumped up some final magic missiles to finally finish off Thizabald. Afterwards, we revived Astarion and long rested. We looted everything from the bar, then took the journal back to He Who Was. He commenced the ritual, where he embodied the soul of the dead halfling. He implored us to punish her, but Eldrass judged she was innocent in her death, which didn't please He Who Was when he came back.
You have crossed me, and for that, I end your pathetic life.
He failed to realize that we had a small army with us and was quickly defeated. We continued to the Tollhouse to Gerringhoff Thorm, and we tried to win her favor by offering her a couple of coins. This was not enough, of course. We refused to give her more, and then she attacked. I had forgotten that she does a lot of damage to people with gold in their inventory, and Eldrass had a lot of gold. At the start of combat, she got to go first and proceeded to one-shot Eldrass. This was when I realized my second mistake. Our party was stuck on the way up to the landing, and in a very bad spot. My priority was to destroy the skulls as quickly as possible. My Azer jumped up to the landings, leaving the skeletons to take out a couple of shots on Gerringhoff, at least doing something productive. One of the methods flew up and did some damage to one of the skulls, but now the real problem began. The skulls did come closer, which was good for us, but any on the upper landing took the chance to damage Eldrass. I had Gale cast Bless and then Misty Step to the top, while Shadowheart used Mass Healing Word with hope to revive Eldrass. Unfortunately, it didn't work and he must have been out of range. One of the skulls did flow closer to my skeletons on the ground level, allowing them and the other method to damage it. I did try to get Astarion to use Banish on Garinoth, but it failed. Garinoth attacked Shadowheart and Astarion. Shadowheart only took minor damage, but Astarion was left with a quarter health. Thankfully, it was our skeletons' turn, and 2 of them managed to destroy the skull that was on their level. However, things only got worse when a skull killed Eldrass, removing the Mephits from the fight. The skulls continued to damage us, leaving Gale on a quarter health. Gale used a Scroll of Revivify on Eldrass to bring him back, while Astarion used Singing Sword Shriek to help give us extra damage. One of the weaker skulls tried to get past Gale to hit Eldrass, and this allowed Gale to use Shocking Grasp and finish it off, weakening Garinoth again. Another skull got in and knocked down Astarion this time, and with Gale only at 6 HP and Eldrass only at 1, things were looking shit. But hang on, it just got shitter when a skull took out both Eldrass and Gale with an AoE attack, leaving Shadowheart alone. However, they were not dead yet, which meant the skeletons and the Azer were still able to do something, which actually turned out to be very little as they were stuck at the bottom of the stairs. The Azer did what it could, but it eventually was defeated by the skulls, and then another skull came to finish Gale off. But this did have a positive. On Shadowheart's turn, she used Healing Word on Astarion to bring him back, and because Gale wasn't dead, she didn't have to worry about hitting him with a massive Ice Storm, destroying 2 of the skulls in one go. A skull dashed all the way down to be on the floor with the skeletons, turning my hope around as Astarion healed himself. Garinoth was weaker, and she started summoning halberds and throwing explosive coins around, making the battlefield even deadlier. Then our skellies did some massive damage to the skull on the ground level. Eldrass was once again finished off by a skull, leaving Shadowheart and Astarion alone. Shadowheart used Magic Missile on the skull on the ground level, destroying it, leaving only 1 weak skull at the roof. But this wasn't anything Magic Missile couldn't handle. Astarion used his Magic Missile to destroy the last remaining skull, leaving Garinoth at 107 health. She now spent her turn summoning spirit weapons. This meant we could focus on her easily. Our skeletons kept attacking her, which kept doing a massive damage because she was in range of Shriek. Once all of the skeletons had their turn, she was down to 37 health. Shadowheart used Icy Storm to bring her down to 20, and Astarion was just about to finish things off with a Lightning Blast and completely whiffed it. This meant it was up to a skeleton to finish her off. Garinoth surprisingly resurrected herself, but this wasn't a problem for Magic Missile. Considering that I completely balls up the opening of this fight and had only half a party for most of it, I somehow managed to turn around with effective use of only 2 people. We revived Eldrass and Gale, then looted the toll bridge. We actually still had a lot of spell slots since half our party was dead for that fight, so we continued into the shadows. We defeated the group of shadows and the shadow-cursed harpers in the middle of town, and I finally remembered to equip Astarion with the Shadow Moon Lantern, giving him the ability to summon the shadow, which was useful in the next fight against the shadows in the Mason Guild. Man, that was a lot of use of the word shadow. After defeating the shadows and using up a few more spell slots, we long rested, and Gale sent a projection to ask us to meet with him. We agreed and sat down with him for a chat. We convinced him that we would help him take out the Absolute without having to blow himself up, which he was thankful for.
Yes, but there is so much to live for and so few moments in which to house it all.
After resting, we summoned our army again, which now included the Shadow. We went to the cemetery where we found Arabella, who was pretty strong now. Arabella was looking for her parents. We offered to help find them, and she went back to camp. We found this robe for Shadowheart, which gave her the spell Armor of Agathis, which was a great spell for her, and then went to the hospital, where we found Arabella's parents dead.
It's Arabella's father. The horror of his end I daren't contemplate.
Well, that didn't take long. The nurse taking care of them thought she was doing a great job, without realizing they were actually dead. We didn't attack the nurse because we wanted to buy whatever potions she had, then continued to the doctor's surgery. I didn't want to make the same mistake again, so this time I set everyone up around the theatre. Since this was a theatre, our whole party had a fantastic vantage point, with our skeleton archers front and center with great lines of sight. Once everyone was set up, I had Eldrass initiate dialogue. The surgery Malice was performing was horrid, but we almost managed to convince him to let the nurses practice on him instead. Unfortunately, this failed, so we had to fight. However, we were prepared for destruction this time. The 2 skeletons got the go first, with only one damaging the nurses. Eldrass cast Wall of Fire across the side of the theatre, cutting them off from his side. It forced all the enemies to run the long way around to a great choke point. One of the nurses was really confused and actually chose to do nothing. Then Astarion cast Cloud of Daggers on the walkway Malice and the nurses intended to walk through. Then had Gale cast Bless on the party, and Shadowheart cast Stone Skin on herself. My Mephits flew down to the center, and with the skeleton archer's help, continued to damage the nurse in the center of the theatre. For round 2, Eldrass used Fire Shield, while the enemies made their way closer, damaging themselves and the Cloud of Daggers along the way. Now that they were close, Astarion cast Singing Sword Shriek, and this is where things became really magical. Eldrass was able to land a massive lightning blast on Malice and 2 of the nurses. Then Malice did something stupid and attacked the mud Mephit, leaving him covered in mud after it exploded. One of the nurses ran back down into the firewall, and the other had finally been defeated by the skeleton archers, leaving only Malice and 4 nurses remaining. one of which was finished off by Astarion. Gale cast Create Water and Malice, allowing Shadowheart to do some good damage with Ray of Frost, when a skeleton finished off another nurse, leaving one remaining. Eldras cast Lightning Blast again, doing a massive 50 damage to Malice once more. Malice was not in a good spot, and he tried to run away, but he slipped on the ice that was created by Shadowheart. After another Lightning Blast from Astarion, he was on 88 health and still prone, and still wet. Gale and Eldras followed up with more Lightning Blasts, eventually defeating him before he even had the chance to stand up. With Malice defeated, we had little left to do in this part of the map. We defeated the group of shadows and shadow cursed outside the morgue, then went into the morgue and killed the zombies. Explored a little, then went through this big locked door with Nock. We ignored the oozes and then laid waste to the shadow cursed Kultor. Now that this section of the map was taken care of, we went towards Thorm Mausoleum, where we interrupted Raphael's poem rehearsal.
Our hero thought but of treasure ahead, did not consider the peace of the dead. Through the dark he went creeping, and awoke what was sleeping. A new grave they dug, which he himself fed.
He said that he would provide us with information about Astarion's scars if we take care of a problem for him, and that problem was killing a infernal creature inside of the temple. We agreed, but we were still cautious of the devil. We entered and looted the first couple of rooms, then attempted to crack the puzzle. You'd think I'd have this order memorized by now, but no. Once we entered inside the temple, we worked out the Sharon puzzle to allow us to open the big door, then proceeded to not use it and go the long way around. Astarion happened to cast a random Eldritch Blast and revealed a cloaker in hiding. Well, that was a coincidence. After killing it, we went inside and went into a room where we were greeted by some skeletons. They gave us quite the warm welcoming party. And when I say party, I mean it. It must have been a fantastic undead party because all of a sudden, we had even more skeletons showing up. And they all seemed to be having such a great time, they invited their friends through these portals. But wait, one of the skeletons must have spilled his drink on another skeleton, and now they were fighting. I guess we better step in and help. Now this is what I call a party. We went inside the door to find the host of the party, Balthazar. He wasn't too happy with us being here, but seemed to have found it use for us either way. He tasked us with retrieving this Night Song weapon. I didn't really like how Balthazar spoke to us, so I wanted to fight him too. However, we were close to level 9, so we left to get some more experience. We made our way to where Yugo had his throne, and I wanted to try and speak to the Displacer Beast to try and convince it to join us. We investigated the spider meat thoroughly.
Rotten meat. That's what gets you going. Well, to each their own.
And we found it was laced with a love potion. So we took that information to Displacer Beast and fell right into Yugo's trap. Not willing to talk things out with him, we attacked. And well, we were in trouble. I tried my best to make good of a bad situation, but we couldn't do it. We were simply outnumbered and in a terrible spot. I reloaded, and this time I gave up on the cat and seeked a better advantage point. We set up on a cliff overseeing where Yugo was hiding, conveniently revealed by Eldras's eye, and cast our first Lightning Blast. This was a great opener. However, Yugo had a better one. From here on, it was tough going, and we couldn't really get back into a good spot before dying. I tried one more time, this time opening with Shah's Ice Storm, doing great damage, creating a path that was hard to travel. Yugo again attacked us up close and personal. This time, he threw his explosives after he shot his bow, which saved us from being one shot, but still killed the mud methods. The other Maragon was surprised, allowing us to lay into Yugo. From here, Gale casted Create Water, allowing Eldras to land a massive 64 damage on Yugo, bringing him to a quarter health. Then Astarion finished off Yugo with Lightning Blast, killing him in one turn. Now the only thing that was left to do was kill the Maragon. Shadowheart cast Icy Storm on the group, doing a great damage and creating a difficult path. This caused pretty much every single one of them to slip trying to make their way to us. We barraged them with Lightning Blast, and when the ice melted, Gale used Black Tentacles to slow them down once more. Oh, that's right, there was a Displacer Beast. It used this teleport and teleported the Azer away and killed it. Oh well, not a bad problem. We continued to use Lightning Blast to damage multiple Maragons and the Displacer Beast, eventually finishing them all off. We were now level 9 and had access to some more amazing spells. After a massive success with our army so far, I wanted to lean into it more. For Eldras, I gave him Conjure Elemental and Cloud Kill. Shadowheart, I gave her Cone of Cold and Ice Knife. Finally, Astarion got Cloud Kill and Conjure Minor Elemental. And lastly, for Gale, he got Conjure Elemental and Cloud Kill. We collected the gem and went back to Balthazar. We still had many spell slots, so we didn't even long rest. We used our Arcane Recovery and started summoning our army, which now consisted of an Azer, Fire Elemental, Water Elemental, and 4 Mud Methods. With our army summoned, we prepared and launched our attack on Balthazar. I started by using Gale to cast Create Water, weakening them to Shadowheart's Icy Storm. The icy terrain was perfect as Balthazar slipped on his first turn, ending it before it even started. My intention was to bottleneck them, so I used my elementals' long-range attacks on the ghouls inside, finishing off one of them right away. Shadowheart got to go once more and cast Ice Storm again, doing even more damage. Astarion cast Singing Blade and Shriek, and Gale cast Black Tentacles to slow them down. The Mud Mephits attacked all the ghouls to make them all muddy, while Eldrazi cast Wall of Fire to prevent the enemy from leaving without taking damage. However, Balthazar used Cloud Kill on Shadowheart. Shadowheart's counter spell failed, so we took damage from it, but this wasn't a problem. He used his second attack to cast Ray of Sickness on the Azer, which killed it, but our Psionic Backlash broke his concentration, releasing the Cloud Kill. The Elementals did more damage to Balthazar and the ghouls, while Shadowheart tried Ice Knife on Balthazar, which didn't really seem that impressive. Astarion hit Balthazar with Lightning Blast, which was followed up by Fireball from Gale. Balthazar was only taking a small amount of damage from our spells, but it wasn't a problem. One of the Mud Mephits finished off the ghoul, and Eldrazi used Magic Missile to do big damage to Balthazar, bringing him down to 9 HP. He tried to revive one of the ghouls, but Shadowheart's counterspell negated it. Balthazar tried to cast another spell, and with Astarion and Eldrazi's Psionic Backlash, he was finished off. Now all that was left to do was kill the remaining ghouls and flesh, and they were no match for our army. With Balthazar dead, we continued to the Gauntlet of Shah, and watched Shadowheart struggle through the challenges. She made it through the stealth trial pretty easily, only being caught once. Next was the self-same challenge. This is where I realized just how strong we were by having to fight ourselves with all the same abilities. Though it was a little bit tricky, we managed to defeat them with help from our summons. We had used up all our spells at this point, so we long rested. And that night, Raphael appeared, thanking us for killing Yuga and providing us with information about Astarion's scars, revealing that they were part of an infernal ritual to sacrifice Astarion, his fellow spawn, along with thousands and thousands of others, so that Khazad-dûr could become a vampire ascended, granting him ultimate power. We vowed that we would stop Khazad-dûr, which we would have to tackle when we reached Baldur's Gate. We then proceeded to the Shadow Bridge challenge. I mentioned that I haven't had much trouble with this challenge before, so I know a lot of people have troubles with this one, but I have never had a difficulty with this trial at all. Then proceeded to completely fail and kill Shadowheart. I then realized that I could just simply cast Grant Flight and fly over the bridge and collect the gem. So Shadowheart really did die for nothing. Lastly, we found our way to the library, and I realized this could be a tricky fight since the librarian in the middle of the room cast silence on everyone, preventing anyone from casting spells. Thankfully though, I had a summoned army. We rushed in and destroyed the librarian, allowing us to cast spells again and defeated the Sharon Guards quite easily. We used Knock on the Door and solved the puzzle to receive the Spear of Night. With the spear and all the gems in hand, we could go further into the gauntlet and face the final challenge, which was surviving the floating plate. For some reason, Shadowheart couldn't keep her footing on the plate and kept slipping off. Thankfully, the other party members had no issues and walked further in to allow Shadowheart the fast travel to the group. In this massive room was a big pool of water. We allowed Shadowheart to do her prey and then we dived in. We appeared in the Shadowfell. We all ran down, leaving our summons behind, simply because they couldn't jump and manually teleporting them all the way down was just way too much effort. At the very bottom of the Shadowfell, we found the Night Song, a woman who was chained to the ground. The final part of the challenge, and for Shadowheart to become a Dark Justiciar, was to kill the Night Song with the Night Spear. The Night Song revealed she knew more about Shadowheart than even Shadowheart knew of herself. We allowed Shadowheart to follow her heart, and she threw the spear and released the Night Song. We now had a new ally in our quest against Ketheric. Night Song, whose name was Aelin, flew off and back to the Shadow-Cursed lands to lay siege to Moonrise, and we followed closely behind. Before we could join Aelin in attacking Ketheric, I wanted to make sure we had all of our spell slots, but I didn't really want to waste a long rest just yet. So we went to see Oliver again and requested he reunite with Thaniel. Oliver was resistant to this and teleported us to the middle of the shadows. We used all of our spell slots to take out his little clones and shadows and defeated him pretty easily. We convinced him to join back with Thaniel, and he disappeared to join with his lost half. With less spell slots now, I felt a little bit better about long resting, allowing us to be fully charged for the fight ahead. We summoned our army and crossed the bridge to find Jaheira at the doors of Moonrise Towers. Although she had lost her harpers, she was determined to assist us in defeating Ketheric. She joined us, however, we weren't going to barge to the front door. We decided to climb up through the side and go up through Balthazar's room. After a very long and tedious time navigating everyone to the top platform, eventually everyone except the Shadow, because it can't jump or warp, we were finally ready to launch our assault. We started with the enemies at the top of the tower, consisting of Marcus and a few mages. Though Marcus himself was a bit tough, he was silly and charged right into us, quickly finding himself surrounded by our army. While our minions attacked him, we cast AoE spells to finish off the other mages. Then we snuck downstairs to where the larger part of the forces was. I was pretty confident in this position, and I started moving everyone around to get into position. I accidentally moved an air elemental into detection range. Well shit. There goes the element of surprise. However, it was only our army that was in combat. Everyone who was still stealth still had a chance to attack while hidden. I finished moving everyone into position, with Eldrass and Shadowheart on one side and Astarion and Gale on the other. Gale used Scorching Ray on his closest enemy, while Astarion used Lightning Bolt, hitting the two that were lined up across the back. Shadowheart and Eldrass both cast Icy Storm on the backline, doing great damage to all three enemies while also creating icy terrain. The air elementals followed up by teleporting in and doing more damage. Unfortunately though, the other elements were too far away to make it and do any damage. Upon moving the fire elemental in, a little bit too deep, the whole front room was alerted to our presence, and things just got a little bit harder. To help with this, Eldrass cast Misty Step closer to the door and cast a wall of flames across the large doorway. With help from the mud methods, Shadowheart finished off one of the enemies, marking our first kill. It was now the enemy's turn, and they all started dashing to join the fight. Some chose to take the side doors, one of which leading right to Eldrass. One of the enemies cast Hunger of Hadar over Eldrass and Shadowheart, which needed to be taken care of. Meanwhile, the Zealot on Gale and Astarion's side had its turn and proceeded to one-shot Astarion and almost one-shot Gale in one turn, making him a key target. More enemies came dashing in to join the fight, though most went through the flaming wall, weakening themselves along the way. Gale was finished off by an archer, leaving that side of the map unprotected. Thankfully, the flame elemental was able to break the concentration of the Hunger of Hadar, while my water elemental brought the Zealot attacking Gale and Astarion down to only a small amount of health. The enemies moved in closer, and just as Eldrass tried to throw a fireball into the group, someone cast Counterspell on him, so he was left wide open. I managed to get him away from the front lines though. The Aether and the other summons took their turns, doing their part at damaging the oncoming enemies. Shadowheart then cast Ice Storm on the large group who just passed through the firewall, doing great damage, then managed to get close enough to be able to revive Astarion. However, it wasn't enough. The Zealot had its turn next, and it was going to attack Astarion once more with Thunderous Smite, which was actually a blessing, as it allowed Astarion to cast Psionic Backlash and finish the Zealot before it could take Astarion down again. Astarion then healed with a potion and retreated for now. Z'rell closed in from the doorway closer to Eldrass and cast Black Hole, sucking everyone in closer and slowing them, a terrible spell to deal with. The fire and water elementals managed to finish off their cultists each, lowering the numbers further. Eldrass used Magic Missile to finish off the Ogre, leaving them with even less. Shadowheart stepped in with Icy Storm. While she did damage the elementals, she managed to kill 3 cultists in one go. Astarion drank a potion of speed and then revived Gale, and then proceeded to cast Cloud Kill over the entire entrance of the hall. Z'rell cast Black Hole again, slowing Shadowheart and Eldrass once more. However, things were looking good in the center of the field. With help from Cloud Kill, the elementals were able to kill another 2 cultists. Eldrass cast Magic Missile on Z'rell, doing great damage with lightning stacks. Another enemy was taken down by Cloud Kill, leaving 5 including Z'rell. We had this in the bag. Z'rell cast Black Hole yet again, slowing us, making it even harder to get in close. But it wasn't a problem. Our Shadow was now in the fight, distracting the Archer and the Absolutist in the other room, allowing everyone to encircle Z'rell, who was finished off by an ice method. With Z'rell dead, we lowered the flaming wall and collapsed on the remaining cultists and finished off the battle. What an epic battle. The Wizards are practically laughing through this game now. We looted everything and short rested. I still had a lot of spell slots, and with Arcane Recovery, even more. We summoned some skeleton archers from the bodies, and then decided I would go down to the prisoners and rescue Warbrun. We arrived and we were surrounded by undead, but they were no match for our army, and we pushed our way through, smashing bones along the way. However, it seems Warbrun was already gone. I assume this mission must have been done before releasing the Night Song. With nothing left to fight, we long rested, preparing for the final battle against Ketheric. We prepared our army. Eldrass summoned 2 mud methods, an air elemental, a skeleton archer, and Scratch. Astarion summoned 2 flying ghouls, 2 ice methods, and the Shadow. Shadowheart summoned water elemental and a skeleton archer, and Gale summoned an Aether and a fire elemental, bringing our army's total to 18. Ketheric stands no chance. We climbed the tower and kicked in the door, where Ketheric was already under siege from Dame Aelin. Ketheric seemed defeated, ready to stand down. He was almost about to before he had a surge of determination and rose to fight us.
A price I am destined to pay. You have one last chance to bow. Once it's gone, I'll have no choice but to destroy you both. Do you hear? Bow!
His funeral, I guess. Our army was here, and I had the elementals take on the skeletons, while one of the flying horrors flew to the middle to attack the cultists, paralyzing them before flying away. Ketheric ran down to the middle of the battlefield, which suited us. Gale cast Create Water on Ketheric, preparing him for lightning attacks, and Shadowheart cast Fire Shield Chill on herself, while Astarion cast Shrieking Blade. By the end of the first round, only one of the skeletons was destroyed, but we were in a very good position. The Flying Ghoul and the Shadow both attacked the paralyzed cultist, doing massive damage while she couldn't do anything. Ketheric cast an ability that frightened everyone, but this wasn't a problem. Eldrass cast Icy Storm over him, killing the cultist and doing damage to Ketheric himself. Another 2 skeletons were killed by our summons, and on Astarion's turn, he used Shocking Grasp on Ketheric, weakening him even more. However, this is when Ketheric raised his hammer, and a giant tentacle burst from one of the tower's turrets, taking Aelin out at the same time, and then teleporting both her and Ketheric away. We had no choice but to finish off the remaining enemies and chase them down. We short rested, then jumped down the fleshy inside of the turret the tentacle had emerged from, and then landed in a fleshy underground cave, the inside of the Mind Flayer colony. We charged through, destroying everything and anything in our path. We killed Chop, releasing him off duty, and then released us, adding another to our army. There was a full room of undead enemies, and we set up a trap and attacked them. They slowly made their way to us, constantly slipping on ice, allowing us to finish them off one by one, without them doing any damage to us at all. We continued through, leaving a trail of destruction in our wake. We were close to level 10, so we had to kill everything we could. We killed the brains in the elevator chamber, and I realized we could use a recovery pod to heal everyone and get our spell slots back again. Perfect. We launched our surprise attack on the cultists inside, taking them out easily, then found the chamber where Mizora herself was being held. It turns out she was the one we needed the rescue. Now, you're gonna hate me for this, but I wanted to see what would happen if we pressed the red button here and kill Mizora. Unfortunately, the outcome was not good. This caused Mizora to be killed, and along with her, Will. This blunder cost Will his life. Sorry, Will.
The Hells have taken Will as their own.
Without time to mourn Will, we continued to the next chamber where Zevlor and the Flaming Fist soldiers were being held. However, Mind Flayers were also being held here. Although I didn't really see threats, I saw experience. We released them all, and our army laid waste to the Mind Flayers with ease.
Hells. I didn't think I was going to make it. Thank you.
After the battle, everyone except Astarion was level 10. For Eldrass, he got Empowered Evocation, doing even more damage with his evocation spells. He got another cantrip, which I gave him Minor Illusion, and for his spells, he got Cone of Frost and Wall of Stone, leaning heavily into that evocation class. Shadowheart got Improved Abjuration, which improves her arcane wards, and for spells she got Longstrider and Planar Binding. And lastly, Gale got Focus Conjuration, which means his concentration on conjuration spells cannot be broken. And for spells he got Web and Sleet Storm. There was literally nothing left for us to kill, so Astarion was going to have to remain level 9 for now. I resummoned everything I could and used Recovery Pod to heal everyone and get our slots back. With all of our new members, we now had an army of 21. I loaded everyone up on the elevator, then descended. When we approached, we saw that Ketheric was not alone, but he was with 2 others, each branding a glowing stone and talking about their plans for Baldur's Gate. They each spoke their gods' names, and then Elder Brain rose from the water. They commanded it to take their absolute army and march for Baldur's Gate.
March on Baldur's Gate.
This was the point in which Gale wanted to blow himself up to defeat the Absolute once and for all. However, we would have been caught up in the explosion, so we convinced Gale not to blow himself up. Ultash and Oren left with the brain, leaving Ketheric alone for us to slaughter. We entered the chamber and I took my usual approach. I had everyone but Shadowheart sneak up on the platform behind the skeleton mages, leaving the summons behind at the entrance. I then had Shadowheart turn invisible with her ring of invisibility and sneak to release Aelin. Once Shadowheart released her, dialogue started with Ketheric. Ketheric told us about his faith in Merkel. We tried to convince Ketheric that he could still repent, which was kind of successful. He backed away from us, unsure. He did eventually give in to his faith of Merkel, stepped back to the edge of the platform, and fell back into the water. Suddenly the ground shook, and a massive skeleton rose from the water, the projection of the god of death himself. Merkel was mad we defeated his servant, and vowed to destroy us. And Eldrass had only one word for this: cope. Battle commenced, and Eldrass got the move first, casting Fireball to destroy 3 of the 4 skeleton mages on the platform with him. I then moved the army of summons to get in close to the Merkel, to do as much damage as they could to him. Though they didn't really do that much damage, their presence on the platform next to Merkel prevented him from casting the ability that sucks everyone in close. Merkel attacked, taking out one of our flying ghouls while damaging everything else on the platform. Shadowheart killed 2 of the Intellected Barrels with Fireball. Astarion cast Shriek, while Gale cast Create Water on Merkel, making him wet and vulnerable to ice and lightning. The Mind Flayer dominated Aelin, making it a priority target. Thankfully, Aelin didn't attack Shadowheart, but then she flew in to attack Isabel, which is really sad and ironic. Thankfully though, she ran out of combat before she could. Eldrass attacked Merkel with Lightning Blast, hitting it for 70, while the other summons continued to do what they could to Merkel. The Fire Elemental tried to attack the Mind Flayer and break its concentration, but it failed, which meant it was up to Shadowheart, who cast Cone of Frost and successfully broke its concentration. Astarion used Lightning Blast on Merkel, doing another 30 damage and destroying one of the incubator skeletons at the same time. Then Gale summoned a Flaming Ball to help. All of our summons attacked and destroyed the incubations, while the Mind Flayer moved away from Shadowheart, allowing her to hit it with Shocking Grasp. Eldras did another 40 damage with Lightning Blast. Shadowheart finished off the Mind Flayer with Magic Missile. We kept up this pattern of doing damage with Lightning Blast and destroying the incubations with our armies, making Merkel look more like the god of foolery. After a few more rounds of this, Eldras finally finished off Merkel with a Lightning Blast. And that was pretty much it. We were stronger than gods at this point. We collected the stone from Ketheric's armor, and then the Dream Visitor arrived, who said that we must gather the remaining stones in order to defeat the Brain. With Ketheric slain, we were one step closer to being free from the tadpoles and saving Baldur's Gate. Astarion leveled up during the fight. He got his subclass feature of Inured to Death, preventing necrotic damage, and his max health from being lowered. For his new spell, I gave him Summon Elemental and Counterspell. We emerged from the colony victorious, but there was still more battles to come, and it was now time for us to leave the Shadow-Cursed lands. However, as we were trying to leave, we were jumped by Githyanki. But that's a mistake. After quickly killing them, we left the Shadow-Cursed lands, and in doing so, the lands were healed and finally free of the Shadow Curse. We arrived in camp, and Karlach was beside herself about Will's sudden death, while Aelin revealed more about Shadowheart's past, showing her that Shah had misled her about her parents. We set up camp just outside of the city of Baldur's Gate, looking over the city whose fate was in our hands. But we were going to save it. The Absolutists may have an army, but we have an army of our own, and 4 very powerful wizards. And that, everyone, is the end of Act 2. And I take back everything I said. Wizards are by far the strongest class I've played. I think the only class that may be stronger is Sorcerer, simply because they also cast the same kind of spells. The summons are game-changing. Having 4 wizards all being able to summon elementals and skeletons is just... The summons make it impossible for any number of enemies to have a chance at getting close, keeping them at bay while the wizards are able to punish the enemies with insanely powerful spells. They are simply magnificent. I'm extremely excited to decimate the final act, and I hope you guys are too. I will be uploading the full playthroughs on my channel so you can watch along blow by blow. Otherwise, subscribe to my channel if you want to see how the wizards finish this playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.